We are back with chapter 12 of Happy Times in Noisy Village. And chapter 12 is called The Cherry Company. Anna might be right after all, that we have the most fun in the summer. But I like to go to school too. And when Miss Johnson says goodbye to us on the last day, I almost cry because I know that I won't see her for such a long time. But I soon forget about this because it's so wonderful to have summer vacation. The first evening of our summer vacation, we usually go fishing at the North Farm Lake. There's hardly anything that feels as summery as fishing. We make the rods ourselves of hazel branches, but we get lines and floats and sinkers and hooks from the store at Big Village. Carl calls the night we finish school the big fishing night. There is a rock that's not too big and not too small where we sit to fish. It's called the Perch Rock, Anna says, because you never catch any perch there. The only thing you catch is mosquito bites. But Bill did catch a big perch the last time we were there. Britta caught 2 small roaches. Later, Anna and I sat on our kitchen steps and counted mosquito bites. I had 14 on my right leg and 5 on my left. Anna had 9 on each leg. You could use that for a problem in arithmetic, Anna said. Let's write it down for Miss Johnson. If Lisa has 14 mosquito bites on one leg and 5 on the other, and Anna has 9 on each leg, who has the most mosquito bites and how many do they have altogether? But suddenly we remembered that it was summer vacation, and it's silly to do arithmetic then. So we just scratched our bites and had fun until bedtime. How wonderful it is to have summer vacation. One thing we did last summer was to organize a cherry company. We have lots of cherry trees in our garden, in Anna and Britta's garden. In Olaf's garden there aren't any, at least none that are any good. The South Farm garden has, instead, a tree with fine August pears and 2 trees with little delicious yellow plums. The largest cherry tree in the world, I think, is outside Grandfather's window. We call it Grandfather's cherry tree. Its branches droop down almost to the ground, and every summer it's full of big cherries. Grandfather says that we may eat as many as we want to, but we mustn't pick the cherries from the lowest branches because those are for Kirsten. Grandfather wants Kirsten to be able to pick them herself. And she can too, although she's very little. But Olaf has to watch her, or she'll swallow the pits too. We do as Grandfather says and don't pick any cherries from Kirsten's branches. It is so easy for us to climb up in the tree and pick there. There are many good branches and many forks in the branches where you can sit and eat all you want. Our stomachs hurt a little every year during the cherry season. After the cherries are all gone, we don't have stomach aches anymore until the plums get ripe. Mommy always dries the cherries and keeps them through the winter. She puts them on a cookie sheet in the oven when it's barely warm. Then the cherries get dry and wrinkled, and you can save them to make fruit soup during the winter. Carl and Bill and I each have a cherry tree of our own. This year, they all had an unbelievable amount of cherries. Although Britta and Anna and Olaf helped us, we couldn't possibly eat all the cherries on our trees. One day, Carl was going to dry some, and he filled a whole cookie sheet and put it in the oven. Then he went swimming and forgot all about his cherries. When he looked at them again, they had turned into tiny black burned seeds. That's not the right way to treat cherries, he said. Then one night we were up in Grandfather's room reading the paper, and it said that in Stockholm, cherries cost 2 crowns a quart. Carl was very upset to think that he didn't have his cherry tree in Stockholm. Then I'd sell my cherries on a street corner and become as rich as the king, he said. We tried to figure out how much money we would earn if only our cherry trees were in Stockholm. It was so much that Carl turned quite pale when he thought about it. If only I had the North Farm Lake in the Sahara Desert, I could sell water for 2 crowns a quart also, said Britta, who thought Carl was silly. I think Carl lay awake that night and thought about getting 2 crowns a quart for cherries in Stockholm, because the next day he said he was going to open a cherry store on the highway that runs on the other side of Big Village. There are a great many cars passing there. And who knows, some crazy Stockholmers might even come by, he said. Bill and I said we wanted to sell our cherries too. Here's a picture of them collecting their cherries out of the tree. Bill and I said we wanted to sell our cherries too. So we made a company that we called the Cherry Company. We let Britta and Anna and Olaf be members too, because they helped us pick our cherries, although they did not have any trees of their own. We got up at 5 o'clock one morning and started picking. By 8 o'clock, we had 3 large baskets of cherries. Then we all ate a lot of oatmeal so that we'd be able to go without food for a long while, and started out toward Big Village. We went by Uncle Emil's store and bought many brown paper bags with some money we had borrowed from Bill's piggy bank. What do you think you're going to do now? Uncle Emil said. We're going to sell cherries, Carl said. We had left Olaf watching the baskets on the step outside the store. Cherries, now that's something I like, Uncle Emil said. Perhaps you'll sell me some. Wasn't that good? Uncle Emil measured out 2 quarts for himself and gave us 2 crowns for them. He said that 1 crown a quart was the price for cherries in these parts, and that it was a good thing for us to know. Bill got the money we had borrowed from his piggy bank, and we still had some left. Uncle Emil gave us some candy. When Olaf saw this through the glass in the door, he came rushing into the store as if he had had ants in his pants. When he had got his piece of candy, he rushed out again almost as fast. We thanked Uncle Emil, and when we got outside, we saw that Olaf was picking up some cherries that had spilled in the grass. What are you doing? Carl asked angrily. I'm just polishing your cherries, Olaf said, and sounded scared. But he had only spilled a few, so it didn't matter. The highway runs very close to Big Village. In the fall and winter, you see practically nothing on it but trucks. In the summer, though, many cars pass by because people want to see how beautiful the scenery is here. How can they see anything at all when they drive so fast? Said Carl as the first car zoomed past. We had made a big sign that said cherries, and we held it up every time a car came by. But the cars just drove on. Carl said the people in them probably thought it said, drive carefully, and that was why they were going so fast. He almost forgot the cherries. His eyes were perfectly round from staring, and he knew the make of every car. I think I skipped a line there. Let me reverse. Carl said the people in them probably thought it said, drive carefully, and that was why they rushed by. But Bill thought it was fun to see the cars going so fast. He almost forgot the cherries. His eyes were perfectly round from staring, and he knew the make of every car. That makes more sense. Carl got mad because the cars didn't stop, and he said, I'll teach them. So when the next car started coming, he jumped out in the middle of the road and held up the sign. He didn't jump out of the way until the very last minute before he would have been run over. The car stopped with a dreadful squealing of brakes, and a man got out and grabbed Carl by the arm. Don't you ever try anything like that again, he said. There's the kids with their sign that says cherries, waiting on the side of the road. Carl promised not to do it again, and then, do you know, The man bought a quart of cherries from us before he went on. There was an awful lot of dust on the road. We had covered the cherries with paper, which was probably a good thing, but we couldn't very well cover ourselves. And every time a car drove by, a whole cloud of dust fell on us. What awful dust, I said. Carl asked why I had said that. Why don't you say, what awful sunshine, or what awful birdsong? He wondered. Anyway, who said we had to like the sunshine and not like dust? So we decided we would like the dust. When the next car went by and all the dust whirled us so that we could hardly see each other, Carl said, "What wonderful dust!" And Britta said, "Yes, there's so much lovely dust on this road, really lovely." And Bill said, "I only wish there was a lot more dust." He didn't have to wait long for his wish to come true. A big truck came thundering by, and I didn't know there was so much dust in the whole world as whirled up behind the truck. Anna stood right in the middle of it and stretched her arms in the air and said, "What wonderful, wonderful dust." But then she started to cough, so she couldn't say anything more. When the dust had settled a little, we looked at each other. All of us were gray-black. We thought the dust was wonderful. We thought it was a shame that no cars wanted to stop. But finally Carl discovered that we were standing at the wrong place, right in the middle of a straight stretch where the cars were going at a high speed. We should move to a curve in the road, he said. So we placed ourselves a little farther away where there are two bends in the road, one right after the other. Then we got the idea of standing in a long row along the side of the road and holding one another by the hand and swinging our arms when a car approached. "This'll do the trick," Carl said. And it did. Almost every car stopped. In the first car that came, there were a mother and father and 4 children, and all the children cried for cherries. Their father bought 3 quarts, and their mother said, "Wasn't it lucky we found you? We were so hungry and thirsty." They bought the little black cherries from my tree. The father told us that they were going far, far away, all the way to a foreign country. "Isn't it strange," I said, "that my cherries are going abroad while I am standing right here in Noisy Village?" But Carl said, "Don't be silly. The children will have eaten the cherries long before they get to the foreign country." But I said, even if the cherries were in the tummies of those children, they would go abroad anyway. Finally, we had sold every cherry. We had 30 crowns in the cigar box that we had taken along to keep the money in. It was the wizard's chest, which finally had come to some sensible use. 30 crowns was a terrific lot of money. We divided it so that we got 5 crowns each. "And now that you don't have any cherries left, you may eat as many as you like in our garden," Britta said. "And I'll give you plums as soon as they're ripe," Olaf said when he got his 5 crowns. So you have to admit that the money was fairly divided. On our way home, we went to the confectioner's shop in the big village and ate a piece of cake each and drank soda pop. We could afford to buy that much. We decided to save the rest of the money. When we came home and Mommy caught sight of Carl and Bill and me, she threw up her hands and said that she had never seen such a dirty cherry company. She wanted us to go out to the laundry room and wash. But just then Anna came and cried, "What luck! The finished bath is heated." Britta and Anna had a finished bath down by the lake. We took along clean clothes and ran through the cow pasture as fast as we could. In the lake, we washed off all the wonderful dust. Then we sat in the finished bath to sweat. We decided we were going to make a plum company too, a little later. It's awfully hot in the finished bath, And finally, we were so warm that we almost burst. Then we ran out and cooled off in the lake. My, how wonderful it felt. We splashed on each other and swam and dived. And when we came up, there was no wonderful dust left, not even in our hair. The weather was so beautiful, we sat on the shore and sunbathed. Carl said, "What awful sunshine!" And then Olaf laughed and said, "What awful bird song!" And that's the end of chapter 12. I like that chapter. I like that they had such a positive outlook. At first they were like, ew, dust. And then what they thought, why is dust gross? Sunshine's not gross. Birdsong's not gross. Dust is wonderful, just like sunshine. So now every time I get dirty, I'm just going to think, dirt is wonderful. I'm happy to be covered in dirt. Maybe have that outlook on other things too. We'll see you next time for chapter 13.